Hey, party people, it's Cliff. Good morning. I hope you guys are doing a good, having a lovely day. We're in the car, about ready to drive to work. No big deal. Got my new glasses on. Hello, neighbor. I went out for a walk this morning, and I came across a couple of construction workers who were offloading some wood pallets and some wood stuff in order to build an apartment over there. So, and the whole street was blocked off, and I could have walked around, but I chose not to. And the reason why I chose not to is because you realize, like, the guys that are over there who are doing the construction in such a way that, it's moving around big wood pallets. It's dangerous work. And, health and safety is a big factor whenever you're doing some of this dangerous work. And long ago, my dad was a geologist and created a company, and part of that company was, part of the services of it was doing health and safety inspections. Or not inspections, but just health and safety training. And mine and safety training, like mines, like actually, in the open pit mines, like underground mines, all of that stuff, dangerous work, lockout, tag out, that kind of thing. And I always went to a couple of his classes, helped out when I was like a little kid. I don't do that anymore, and I don't think he trains anymore, which is unfortunate. And I say unfortunate because, nobody wants to do the training. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I've been outside that industry forever. But there was one magazine that you don't need to have any training courses. You don't need to teach any safety. You don't need to teach like anything out there in the entire world. Hey, they're finally putting whatever it is on the gas station. That's good. Or the car wash over there. But look, there's only one magazine that you need to show people to get everybody to take health and safety 100% seriously. Like hands down. And that's safety in every single industry. And it was a magazine of fatalities. And in the magazine, I remember this as a kid. And this is the thing that, like, I remember. It's like, all right, health and safety, like, do this. They would show all of the accident reports of the people that had died on the job. And it was a magazine that pretty much there were no pictures in it, but there were all hand-drawn animations of these, of these silhouette of these characters, like kind of like a comic, like this is what they were doing, this is the thing that, they did, and this is the, and this was the thing that was wrong, and this was the thing that killed them. And some of them are like, completely unpreventable, like, they're at a construction site and a piece of steel, falls from 20 stories up on a building and then, impacts somebody and then, does that. But there was one, dump trucks were a big one. Dump trucks where somebody would get pinned in between the frame and the dump truck that was actually coming down when they thought they propped it up, but they didn't put up the safety, like, whatever switches, the big like loaders and the big the big dump trucks in the rock quarries, the size of the house, a lot of accidents were driving over trucks or driving over 1-ton trucks, and crushing the driver and crushing crushing people. A lot of crushing things, a lot of pinching, a lot of like, wedged up against like, the side of a rock wall and like an excavator or stuff like that. But the thing is that magazine prints every single month. And every single month there's fatalities. And every single month there's always some accident waiting to happen. And look, like there was that news thing about the fatalities of the news report of the tank, exploding, of like the paper mill, like chemical tank exploding. People got chemical burns, people got something else. That's the reason why, like, OSHA comes in there and just does a post preliminary examination And, you know, those poor guys are going to go into that magazine, you know? So that's one of those things where, in practical terms, you do need to teach people about safety, like, you know, just common sense safety and training with big, huge, heavy machinery, training in factories, like don't stick your hand in the, you know, don't stick your hand in there. Or if you drop a tool, I think the one thing is like if you drop a tool on a conveyor belt assembly line, don't reach for it. Just like let it go, you know. And the habit is always to fix something, you know, is always to go in. Another thing with that training has always been confined spaces. Confined spaces are basically spaces where you only have one small exit, and usually if like a gas explodes in there, then that's sort of it. You can't get out. And a lot of the fatalities in those magazines were about people who, you know, one person goes into the confined space and then falls over, you know, and then I forget the terminology of what it's called, but then the second person's like gonna go try to rescue that guy, and then that second person goes, and then the third person tries to go and rescue those two guys, and then the three other guys go, and you know, one of the things that I had always learned on the job site was that, you know, I am like, as the you know, when my dad and we were overseeing like some projects, and like we would always get like construction crews to come on in. It's like those guys have the experience. I think oil rigs are, you know, what my dad's working on right now. Not as like a deckhand, like pulling up the pipes or doing all of that, but he's the geologist on site that looks at the core samples. And I remember, man, I was been on one of the oil rigs out in Kansas, you know, bright-eyed and shiny, you know, oh, you know, our son works in Hollywood. And everyone's like, oh, don't film me, I don't want to be over there, that mess, you know. And you know, my dad was like, oh, they're about to change the pipe, you should watch this. And sure enough, about 5 or 6 guys on the deck, you know, they go out there, and it's like a dance, a coordinated dance. You've seen YouTube videos of it, and it's the same. About the guys changing the pipe. It's dangerous work, but those are the experts. I'm not going to go in there and do any of that because I'm not being trained to do it. But also at the same time, if they were to ask me to do it, I'm going to listen to what they say because they have the expertise. I'm sure there's all kinds of, you know, accidents out there everywhere. But look, that's like when health and safety, there is training that you can do. I think Mike Rowe on Deadliest Catch had a moment where, you know, you're out there in the middle of the ocean on a boat, and he talks to the captain, and you know, and he's like, all of the stuff that you're doing, that's not really safe, is it? And he's like, do you want to be safe or do you want to make money? And then he said something like, you know, what about OSHA? Are OSHA gonna say about anything? He's like, OSHA, and he points out, and the captain points out to the sea. He's like, ocean. So there are some places where, you know, obviously the rules don't apply and you need to do that, but you need to be careful and look out for yourself. And what is Mike Rowe, that one video says, like safety second or something like that, or safety last, which is a good idea to have, you know, in concept. But, you know, I think the next best thing, or even the better thing, is just to, I don't know what that magazine's called. Maybe I'll research it and put it in the description below. But it's one of those things where, like, you know, that magazine's gonna keep getting made, like, and people are gonna keep dying. You know, maybe their fault, maybe not their fault, right? That's the world that we live in. And you got to take, and you know, in order to get like sort of the guys who work in that industry to listen to you when you're doing this safety course, it's just, you know, if I was doing a safety course, pretty much I would basically start out with that magazine. I would start out with, like, you know, put the magazine on the paper, like turn to page 10, and then just read it. You know, guy got crushed by, you know, bulldozer because he didn't lock the brake, you know. kid gets crushed in factory, machinery because they didn't do lockout tagout properly. This, limbs get cut off, this and that. And I would just go through that magazine and I would, of accidents, and then, call it a, and then start the class and then say, like, look, I don't want you to be in this magazine. People are going to be in this magazine. I don't want you to be in it. And that's and you kind of leave it at that, and then you go through your class. That's how you get people to listen to you, is you show all the mistakes that happened before. But that's how our world works. Great achievements are painted in blood. I don't know. I'll put that in a story. I can't remember the exact saying, but that's yeah, that was the one thing I was thinking about this morning. So, well, I don't know. What else is going on with you guys? I got my glasses on. Everything looks clean. It looks sharp. I feel like at some point, like, these glasses are gonna, get my eyesight like a little bit more lazy, a little bit more worse. I do want to get some sunglasses that have these particular lenses in them so I can see a little bit better, once it gets out. But sometimes I won't be wearing them because it'll be a pretty bright day. But today it's cloudy, so we're okay. It's also cold today, and it was like barely raining this morning, which is wild, especially at this time of year. But in any case, yeah, be safe out there, right? Like, have your head on a swivel. I remember one of the scariest things I had ever done on a mine, on one of those, going to one of those rock quarries, with the big, 2-story dump trucks, the big yellow ones that you see on TV. And I was in a little Honda Accord, and I'm sitting there like looking around, just driving on the same roads as those big trucks. And if you're not careful, those trucks will just run right over you, and then you're gone. They don't see you, so it's not their fault. So you got to be really careful. I mean, if you look at some of those rock quarry videos, you'll see that the little 1-ton trucks will have this long, giant pole with a giant red flag on top of their truck. And that's so the guys who are driving the big dump trucks and the big rigs can see them. So, in any case, yeah, that's what went to my mind. I always remember that, and I'm, and like, hey, I remember a YouTube guy who was a truck driver, and during these times, I don't know how it is, but I just remember that YouTube fella. What is this guy doing? I don't know what he's doing. These guys going this way? I don't know what's happening for traffic this morning. No, but I remember this truck driver guy. Has a YouTube channel, big following, I suppose. And he calls up his dispatch or distributor and tells them that, hey, I can't drive. I'm too tired. I need 8 hours of sleep. And then the distributor was like, oh, well, get out and jump around and walk around and do this and, get some coffee in you. And, you can make it out there because we need to make these deliveries or else, we're not going to need to make these deliveries or else we're not going to get paid, not going to get the product done. And sort of a sad state of the times right now of what's going on. But really, like, you need sleep. You need to be rested, and you can't, because like it's funny because because if you're not, then you're going to cause an accident, and then you're going to lose all the product. Which is, sometimes that's also in the magazine too. It's like, operator was drowsy. Operator did not get enough sleep. And that's in all the industries. That's also in the Hollywood industry too, where production and crew will get to set at 8 a.m. and then they'll work them until, 12 p.m. at night, so it's like a 16-hour shift. and then they're expected to come back the next day. I mean, that's the reason why the unions exist, is so that they can control those hours. Um, I'm kind of glad I was never a PA on set and never did any of those things, because that's hard. Being on a film set is hard work. Like, even though you're making entertainment, it's long hours. It's on your feet all day. It's hard work. Like, sometimes there's breaks in between shots, but that's the nature of every industry. It's like risk versus reward. Just like those guys on The Deadliest Catch. They're out there to work 3 months out of the year and make, however much money they can for the rest of the year. Remember, I had a friend who passed away long ago, Eric, his name was, and his dad had worked on the oil rigs out in the ocean, working on those. And he would work out there 3 months out of the year, and then have enough and make something like $200K a year, and then come back and live the next 6 months like at home, just doing whatever they wanted to do. And then the next season goes out, or the next rotation goes out, and he goes out there again. So it's one of those things. Like, and I think there's other jobs like divers are a big one, because you have water pressure danger, and then you have oh gosh, what is it? Obviously, steel workers and construction workers. Dangerous jobs. There's probably There's probably like a TV show called Dangerous Jobs, probably hosted by Mike Rowe. It sounds familiar. There's dirty jobs. I don't know, a lot of things. And so you got to take yourself, your safety seriously. And the way you take it seriously is you open up that magazine and you look at all the other people who've lost their lives because they were, doing something they weren't supposed to do. They were turning in front of traffic just like this guy. Like, I'm going to wait. I'm going to hang out. We don't need to get to work too fast. That's the running joke, right? All right, we're clear to go. And it's also turning yellow. We got a couple cars coming behind us. But yeah, look, you could either get the thing done that you're doing 30 seconds faster and have an exponentially higher risk to whatever work you're doing, or you could take a step back, like, realize what the process is, address it from a certain angle, a certain perspective, and then when you're fresh and ready and you got the team behind you, then you go in and you figure it out. And that's the idea. I think we're gonna go over in this lane. But yeah, I always say, be safe out there. Like, enjoy life, Don't get too crazy or get crazy. That's up to you. But I just don't want you to be in that magazine. We did a TV show called Active Shooter, and won an Emmy. And this was long ago. This was like 2000 or 2016, 17. Only did one season, and at the time we realized that it was very important to tell the stories of the family and the victims of the different school shootings that happened throughout the United States. But we only did one season because we didn't want to, and the network, we didn't want to like encourage additional like shooters in that regard, and so we canned it. But the idea in relation to it is that I didn't want to keep making that TV show, and I think everybody who worked on that TV show didn't want to keep making that TV show. And the unfortunate thing is, nowadays, which is a whole nother subject, you can make 10 seasons of that show. You can make 20 seasons of that show. But we don't want to make that TV show. We don't want to make that kind of TV show. And that's the other thing. We don't want to have that kind of magazine, but that magazine exists. So it exists. Use it. Figure it out. And just be good. Be safe out there. Use your brain. Use your noggin. Oh yeah, subscribe and all that stuff if you want to. I don't care. Oh, look at this Nissan. Oh, it's a fancy Nissan. All right, let me see if I can do this. Nismo, nice. That's like a brand new one. I think I like that car. I don't know if you could see it in there, but that's a nice car. I don't know if it's a nice car for the price, but you know, we'll see. But anyway, you know, be safe out there. Use your head, subscribe, whatever. I don't care. And then I'll see you next time with my evil villain glasses.